Today, the FDA giving the green light for the first pill to treat COVID-19. Who can use it and when will it be ready? And did the Christmas supply chain crisis come to pass? Or are shelves still full? We talked to some last-minute shoppers in New York City. And more companies paying salaries in cryptocurrency to attract workers. What are the pros and what are the cons? That and much more coming up in NTD Business. Good evening. Great to have you with us. I'm Paul Graney. The New Year's Eve celebration at New York's Times Square will go ahead as scheduled. But Mayor Bill de Blasio says the city is working with health officials on additional safety measures amid rising virus cases.
So in working with the sponsors of the event, working with our healthcare leaders, right now, two great virtues, all vaccinated audience and outdoors. We're looking to add additional measures to make it even safer. So we're still in discussion. The goal, of course, is to keep it going because it's such an important event for New Yorkers and for the whole world.
De Blasio didn't give any more details on the measures, but he did say no more shutdowns. He said they aren't needed this year because the city is more prepared. Earlier this month, de Blasio announced a vaccine mandate for all private sector employees in the city. That's set to take effect next week. And news in today, Chicago will start requiring proof of vaccination for indoor spaces like restaurants, bars, and gyms. It'll apply to anyone over the age of 5. The ban will begin January 3rd, but won't include churches, grocery stores, or schools and daycares. With holiday gatherings and the fast-spreading Omicron variant, means at-home COVID test kits are in high demand. Now, two of America's largest pharmacies, CVS Health and Walgreens, are limiting the number of tests a person can buy. CVS is limiting it to 6 test kits per person. That's 2 more than Walgreens is allowing. But Americans may soon be able to get free test kits in the mail. On Tuesday, the Biden administration announcing it will buy 500 million kits to send to people. And the Food and Drug Administration has announced its first pill to treat COVID-19. Pfizer's antiviral pill, Paxlovid, is now authorized for high-risk adults and children 12 and older. Studies show it reduces the risk of hospitalizations and death by 88% if given within the first 5 days of symptoms. A 5-day course of the drug includes 3 pills twice a day. The government says it will buy 10 million treatments for $5 billion, and Pfizer says it can start delivering it right away. And with Christmas right around the corner, some are still scrambling to buy gifts, imagine that. But are they running into empty shelves and supply chain issues as predicted? NTD's Fake Quarter is at Herald Square, New York City.
Singing
it's not unusual to have fun.
And dancing. Christmas is coming. And for last-minute shoppers, physical stores are becoming a more appealing option than waiting around for delivery.
I came to Macy's and I thought it was really nice to actually do something in person.
I just like to look for what I'm seeing, what I'm buying, touch, feel, try on.
According to real estate research firm CBRE, physical store sales are expected to rise by 8% this year, a 10-year high, as shoppers return to in-person shopping and try to avoid shipping delays. As for product quality and prices, some people have complaints.
Quality goes down and prices go up.
It's understandable given the state of the world today and supply chain issues.
But others haven't noticed much of a change.
I think it's okay. I think it's still the same price.
I haven't noticed a dramatic change, no.
Despite ongoing reports about product shortages, some shoppers say they haven't been affected.
We've got what we've got for now.
I feel the choices were a lot.
I think it's pretty full.
Especially for the little ones.
There were a lot of choices for toys.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And out of those, I took this.
President Biden also says the much-predicted crisis didn't occur and shelves are not empty.
Today, retail inventories are up 3% from last year. Inventories are healthy, and on-shelf availability before the pandemic was about 91%. Today, it's at 90%.
Big retailers have been taking measures to make sure products are stocked. Some, like Target and Home Depot, are chartering cargo ships to bypass supply chain problems ahead of the holidays. The White House said a record number of goods are moving through Southern California ports faster, with shipping container wait times cut in half. Faye Quarter, NTD News.
The National Retail Federation expects record sales growth this holiday season, up 11% on last year. But supply chain problems like semiconductor shortages are still a big problem for the upcoming electronics fair in Las Vegas. It's just 2 weeks away and back in person after an all-digital event last year. But now some top tech companies say they'll only attend virtually. NTD's Andrew Thomas has the details.
Looks like another tough year for the world's biggest consumer electronics show, CES 2022. Major tech companies like Amazon, Twitter, and Meta are canceling plans to attend in person due to concerns about Omicron. Supply chain issues are also a problem.
Not only the chip shortage, but the whole distribution chain is, in my view, it's, I think, probably produced more cancellations of exhibitors than anything having to do with COVID at this point. We've heard from exhibitors that are not participating because they just can't get their product, they can't get their prototypes together, things like that.
Demand for semiconductors has exceeded the ability of chip makers to quickly increase production capacity, impacting the production of game consoles, tablets, and autos.
There is, based on research we've done in the industry, a sense that it's not going to be solved quickly. It's, I think people are more optimistic 6 months ago when we did our first set of research than they were 6 months later. So it's an overhang for the industry.
Some top trends at the show this year include the auto sector and health technology, and that's not all.
We also have new categories that we have never had before, like food technology, space technology, NFTs. It's a really wonderful time.
The show starts January 5th, and despite news of top companies now attending virtually, the group that runs CES says it will still have an in-person show, and they're focused on doing it safely. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
And consumer confidence ticked up in November to its highest level since July. Americans seemed less concerned about inflation and the virus, and the outlook for the next 6 months also brightened. But the conference board said despite the improvement, rising virus cases and worries about inflation are still top of mind for Americans. The CPI is rising at its fastest pace in 40 years, but wages aren't keeping up. Now, workers at big companies like John Deere and Kellogg have negotiated yearly raises in line with the cost of living, also known as a COLA. But economists are worried these types of agreements will push inflation into a wage price spiral as businesses increase prices to offset higher labor costs. So joining us is Michael Bustler, Professor of Finance at Stockton University. Professor, great to see you. Thanks for coming on.
Nice to see you again, Paul. It's always my pleasure to be here.
Professor, some people are saying that these COLA agreements, it reminds them of the last serious bout of inflation we had in the 1970s. Are you seeing any parallels between then and now? And if you are, what happens next?
So we are seeing parallels, unfortunately, to what we saw really back in the late 1970s, and there hasn't seen too much since then. So what exactly happens? So workers, they want to get, at least a 1%, 2%, 3% raise every year. So for the last decade or so, inflation's been running at less than 2%. So they figure if I get a 3 or 4% raise, I've covered inflation, I get a couple percent, and everybody's happy. And inflation was never or hasn't been that big of a problem. And as a result, the 3 or 4% wage increases work. Now, what's happening now? So take a look at John Deere. John Deere offered their employees a 6% raise next year. Not only did they turn it down, they went on strike. And they're saying, listen, I'm reading in the newspaper that inflation is 6.8%. And there's some people like Bustler who are saying that it could be as high as 7.5% by year end. Well, if inflation is going to be 6 or 7%, and I want a 1 or 2% wage increase, I'm going to have to ask for a 9% or more increase, which is what they ended up getting. They got a 10% raise. Now, what that does is it means the labor cost for John Deere just went up 10%. So they need to recover that rather in the pricing. So they end up raising their prices 9 or 10%. And then the labor comes back next year and says, hey, inflation's running 9%, I need an 11% raise. And you get into this very dangerous wage price spiral. To make things a little easier and not appear that they're being greedy, labor has said, well, look, give us a cost of living increase equal to inflation, and then we'll settle for our 1, 2, 3% raise. So you'll see some of these cost of living increases come back in these contracts.
So we have a few players here. We have labor, we have the businesses, and we also have the Federal Reserve, who are continuing to inject liquidity into the system, whether the financial system or which makes its way into the real economy, whatever way you want to put it. So you're saying that without the Federal Reserve pulling back this stimulus, what would happen? Do we just fall into this spiral? How does it break? How does it break?
So the Federal Reserve, by pumping all this money into the economy and keeping interest rates at record low levels, has caused inflation, particularly in interest rate sensitive products. For instance, you take a look at the housing market. Now, there are people who are saying, I wasn't necessarily going to buy a new house this year, but I can get a 2.5% mortgage. And, in the last 2 years, the federal government has given me $11,000 or $12,000 in free stimulus money. Well, if the government covers the down payment and I can get a 2.5% mortgage, I wasn't going to buy a house, but now's the time to buy a house. So hundreds of thousands of people get into the housing market, increase the demand for housing, drive housing prices sky high. Same thing is happening with cars. You can get a 0% loan to buy a car. The government gave you whatever money you need for a down payment. So people say, well, I wasn't going to buy a car this year, but conditions are favorable. I'll look at it to buy a car. That increases the demand for cars, and automobile prices have gone up. So what the Federal Reserve needs to do is reduce that bond buying program, start bringing interest rates up to a more historical level. That'll take demand out of the economy, and it should take enough demand out to reduce inflationary pressures, but not enough demand to slow down the economy.
Professor Michael Busler, Stockton University, thank you and Merry Christmas. Appreciate it, Professor. Thanks.
Merry Christmas to you, Paul. Thanks for having me. It's always my pleasure to be here.
If you've been stressing about having to start paying off your student loans again soon, here's good news for you. President Biden is extending the pause on student loan payments for another 3 months. That means frozen balances with no payments required in most federal student loans. Interest has also stopped accruing, and collections on defaulted debt have also been paused. The hold will now go on through May 1st. In today's market news, Wall Street's main indexes climbed today in a broad rally. The Dow rising 261 points, about 0.7%. S&P 500 gaining 47 points, about 1%. And the Nasdaq gained 181 points, about 1.2% today. More companies are offering to pay their workers in cryptocurrency. Some workers actually prefer to get paid in crypto in one form or another. But what are the pros and what are the cons? NTD's Phil Zhou has the details.
When it comes to salary, cryptocurrency is becoming a hot topic for both workers and employers.
Paying in crypto is something that we're seeing more and more requests of.
It's a big opportunity to incentivize new employees and retain existing employees.
We anticipate in the coming year, we're going to pay nearly all of our bills in cryptocurrency.
Next year, we'll see a huge swing towards crypto compensation and just crypto usage as a whole.
The CEO of Gallon Token says wire transfers were becoming a headache. He started using crypto to pay some of his workers overseas.
It's easy, it's instant, It's secure and it's visible.
The CEO of Sarsen Funds agrees. He says many vendors are requesting to get paid in crypto.
Within 10 minutes of them requesting it, and they don't have to go to the bank. It's already in their crypto wallets, which is where they want it, and that's where we have it. So we're very much cutting out the bank, and we don't really kind of miss going to the bank.
Alex Carabray works at Presearch, a search engine powered by blockchain technology. He's actually getting paid 100% in crypto.
Younger people will increasingly want to be compensated in crypto, especially ones who have a risk appetite for the volatility that comes with crypto.
But there are downsides to a crypto salary.
It's a little bit more cumbersome, especially if you haven't dealt with crypto in the past, to exchange it to a form of currency that you can use every day to buy a can of soda or to buy groceries or to pay for your rent.
Workers need to report their crypto income in detail to the IRS, which can get messy if you're not organized.
People don't understand what is at stake whenever you're getting paid in crypto and how you report that on your taxes.
Also, the price of crypto constantly changes up and down.
The sword can cut both ways. It could go up and then you make more money in value. If it goes down in value, then it has an impact on your overall income.
Phil Zhou, NTD News.
And the first text message ever sent reading Merry Christmas was sold on Tuesday for just over $120,000. It was sold as a non-fungible token, or NFT, at a Paris auction house. The text was sent in 1992, 29 years ago. British telecom company Vodafone put it up for auction. NFTs are a type of digital asset that have surged in popularity this year. They could be images, video, music, or text, and each NFT has a unique digital signature. In France, it's illegal to sell intangible goods, so the auction house packaged the text message in a digital frame, displaying the code and communication protocol that transmitted the text. And in China, it seems Beijing has begun suppressing its e-commerce industry. It just fined a top shopping influencer over $200 million for tax evasion. But one expert tells us it could be a warning to the industry as a whole. NTD's Colin Fredrickson has the story.
Chinese shopping influencer Huang Wei, also known as Via, the live streaming queen, has to pay over $200 million in back taxes, late fees, and fines. Chinese state tabloid Global Times says it's the largest penalty ever imposed on a live streamer.
A shares have more than 4,000 listed companies, but only 241 companies pay more than $700 million in tax. In other words, in the case of Via's fine, it's higher than 95% of listed companies' annual taxes.
China affairs analyst Tang Jingyuan thinks this is part of the Chinese Communist Party's, or CCP's, crackdown on local entrepreneurs.
Officials openly announced that the government is tightening its belt, and the people need to be prepared for tough times. So in an economic environment like this, the communist regime will target a portion of high-income earners.
This crackdown on rich social media stars comes at a time when Chinese leader Xi Jinping is determined to redistribute wealth as part of his campaign for common prosperity. Tang says Via's punishment acts as a warning to other top Chinese influencers.
After Via's incident, at least thousands of live streamers actively went to the taxation administration to pay taxes.
Tang says the hefty fine isn't just targeting one individual. Instead, it aims to tighten scrutiny of the whole live stream shopping industry.
Officials are purposely targeting this kind of virtual economy that's attached to the internet. It's in the same direction as Xi Jinping's large-scale extreme regulations over big tech firms.
According to the Quick FactSet database, Tencent and Alibaba have dropped out of the world's top 10 companies in market capitalization. Now there are no Chinese members on the list, partially due to the Chinese regime's tech sector crackdown and tensions with the United States. Colin Fredrickson, NTD News.
Via posted an apology saying she will cooperate and accept the tax authorities' decision unconditionally. Although authorities are currently blocking her online, her accounts on multiple Chinese platforms are suspended and her past live streams are completely gone. And with that, we're going to take a quick break, but still to come. Tesla boss Elon Musk sits down with the satire site The Babylon Bee. apparently he's a fan. So what did the world's wealthiest man have to say to them? And we visit a giant, one-of-a-kind Christmas tree that you can only see at night. What makes it so unique? That and more coming up on NTD Business.
Secure, the true solution for your digital privacy and security. Secure is a private and secure messaging and email solution hosted in Switzerland, using military-grade encryption and Swiss privacy laws, giving you true privacy. Secure is 100% private and does not collect or sell any of your personal data. Secure's Helix technology connects you securely to our Swiss servers without the need of a VPN, guaranteeing privacy and security for all your communications. Secure Messenger doesn't require your phone number or any personal data that hackers target. Chat by Invites allows you to chat privately and securely with anyone outside of your secure network without the need for others to download Secure. Secure Send offers you a private and secure way to email anyone outside of Secure. You won't find this level of privacy or security on any other email or instant messaging application. Visit secure.com. Regain and protect your privacy today.
You are not just watching a performance. You are witnessing a culture reborn. Now, you'll see what the modern world has never seen. China, before communism. Shen Yun 2021, live on stage. Get tickets now at shenyun.com.
Someone has to find the way to build the Great Dome. Completely new, completely original.
Welcome back. The wealthiest man in the world recently sat down with this satire site, Babylon Bee, for a loose, long-form conversation. The Bee was able to question him for over an hour. NTD's Fake Quarter has more.
Like, why can't he fly if he's Batman? Right. Bats can fly.
Yeah, that's true. He just
he glides very effectively, though.
Yeah. So he's really but that's like it's more like flying squirrel man.
The world's richest man recently sat down with the Babylon Bee to discuss a wide variety of topics.
I feel so unqualified to be interviewing you right now. I think we all do. Why are we here? Like, what drew you to like actually sit down with us?
I'm not the one who asked for. I'm not the one who asked for the podcast. You guys did. Just to be clear.
With them, Elon Musk discussed things like wokeness, his time in Canada, and being the world's richest man.
My cash balances are very, very low, and at least until I sold stock, which is really the first time I've actually sold stock in any meaningful way, was this quarter. I simply had loans against my stock. So if Tesla and SpaceX went bankrupt, I would go bankrupt too immediately. So
it's not realized, is what you're saying. Yeah, it's not.
No, it's just like people. It's like I built these two companies, and it was extremely difficult to build them. Like massively painful and difficult, rewarding too, but but massively painful, and difficult, and I didn't sell the stock in the companies. My sort of impression was that you shouldn't take money off the table, or you shouldn't take stock off the table and de-risk things, that a captain should go down, with their ship.
As a young man, Musk moved to Canada by himself with only a few $1,000s. He worked on a weed farm, chainsawed logs in a lumber mill, and did other odd jobs. He later graduated from the University of Pennsylvania with $100,000 in student debt. He says he wrote the first maps and directions on the internet, which were later bought by Compaq.
So I got like $20 million from that. Put most of it into X.com, which merged with Confinity to create PayPal. And then I got about $180 million from that. And I put all of that into SpaceX, Tesla, and SolarCity. I just basically kept all the chips on the table.
Musk called wokeness a mind virus and said that we should be aiming for a positive society. The Cambridge Dictionary defines wokeness as a state of being aware, especially of social problems like inequality.
At its heart, wokeness is divisive, exclusionary, and hateful. It basically gives mean people a reason. It gives them a shield to be mean and cruel, armored in false virtue.
The Babylon Bee is currently one of the 107 Twitter accounts he follows.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Faye Quarter, NTD News.
Thanks so much.
All right.
And some countries are closing their borders over fears of the Omicron variant. But that hasn't stopped some Americans from traveling the globe. Right now, Paris seeing a big return of American tourists. NTD's Olin Richards takes a look.
So every time you walk, a Paris tour guide, Steve Calvo, is welcoming the rebound of American tourists. His business suffered from pandemic lockdowns and travel restrictions. But now he's seeing his bookings multiply. Calvo says this has him feeling optimistic.
Now we're seeing a comeback of tourists, and it's the type of tourist that is changing. It's more private tourists, no longer the mass tourism which I think suffered the most. Now it's small, private groups, more themed visits. This is what takes place more these days.
A mother and daughter from Long Island, New York, say they feel safe traveling. What's more, the duo says they're happy the Palace of Versailles isn't crowded.
I'm not really worried. I think, we were coming from New York and we were at the CDC at a level 4, and France at the time we booked was at a level 3. So I actually thought it was sort of going to some place that had a lower possibility of getting sick. This is my first time to Versailles, but I've seen photos, and honestly, I'm really happy that it's not crowded. I think it makes the day so much more enjoyable and you kind of have the place to yourself.
In 2019, Americans made up the largest chunk of tourists visiting the Paris region, making up around 16% of total arrivals. This October, about 7% of international tourists visiting Paris have been American. Between November and December, the number of visiting tourists has increased dramatically compared to the same time last year. Parisians also seem to like Americans as clients.
They are the best. Because, I don't know, they have the means, they have taste, they pose, and they buy.
And for Americans, this is their second home, so Americans are always traveling in France, Paris, they love Paris.
The number of Chinese and Russian tourists dropped drastically during the pandemic, but Europeans are steadily returning. Tourists from countries such as Germany, Spain, and the Netherlands now make up around a third of arrivals in Paris.
And it's the world's largest floating Christmas tree. Tourists from around the world are flocking to a lake in Italy to admire it, with drone footage showing the moon casting its light on the tree. The tree is made of 165 30-foot-long supporting poles, 4 miles of electric cable, and 2,600 perimeter lights. It's over half a mile long, but it consumes only a little more than 10 kilowatts of energy. More than 100 volunteers took part in the project, which started in 2019. The tree needs daily checks, small and large-scale maintenance, but so far, volunteers only needed to replace 7 bulbs since the project was launched. The nearby Christmas village of the lake also features a monumental nativity scene and food stands. People can enjoy hot drinks and admire the floating tree from a distance. That's the latest business updates. Thanks for watching. See you soon.